Hi there, Donna here. Welcome to my channel. Now today, the topic of our basic tutorial is going to be some very simple bead shaping. Going to make some squiggles, or I'm going to show you how to make squiggles. And then we're going to move into these, which I love. Little flared shape. Something that looks a little like the Michelin Man. Sort of a combination of the two. And then this looks like a unicorn horn. So we're going to move into that after we do our squiggles. Okay, so first of all, what we need to do is we need to make this tapering shape. So I'm going to start with a rod of scrap clay. And this is probably about a ½ inch in diameter. And I've taken a slice that I cut off of this Skinner Blend plug. I thinned it through the pasta machine. And now I'm just going to wrap it around. Like so. And I will try to keep my hands in the center area. I realized that in a couple of the tutorials I did, I had drifted off and away from the lens. So I will try to be more conscious of that. Okay, so let's make sure that the seam is joined just by rolling against your work surface. And then looking at it and making sure that it's not going to split. Now, if this were really a bead, I'm just going to make shapes, not beads. If this were a bead at this point, and I wanted it to run from one tapered end to the other, I would, at this point, put the hole in. So I'm going to put the hole in, even though this is not going to end up being a bead. Pierce straight down. Turn it over and enter from the center of the other side and go straight down to meet the hole. It's really easier to do it this way than it is to try to locate the hole when the clay is longer and you've got to fish all the way through. So put the hole in at this point when you have a nice tidy cylinder, like so. All right. Now let's just depress the ends and bring the clay from the sides over. And I think I did this in another basic tutorial, so you can speed by if you've already seen that one. And we will, what I'm doing is pulling the clay, pulling that Skinner Blend clay up over the scrap. Okay, now let's see if I can find the hole again. Whoops. Or if I squished it so much that I closed it. Oh, found it. So if I were making a bead, I would do precisely this. Every now and then you want to find and restore the hole, because the more you push from the perimeter, the more you close it up. Now just refine the ends by dropping down to the base of your palms and lightly rolling, like so. And now I've got this nice pod-shaped bead. But I'm going to make a squiggle. So what I have to do is taper and elongate one end. And I think I'm gonna put the green. This part will be green. And then this part will be the orange. So I'm just going to elongate. Now I know somebody's going to want to know this, but my very pretty bracelet was made by my dear friend Ray from Philadelphia. And I think probably some of you know Ray. She is wonderful and very talented. And this was a gift, and I absolutely love it. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to taper and elongate just. Now I'm going to thin this one just a bit, but not quite as much as this end. And when I do that, I'm just trying to close up the end. Okay, here we go. All right. Begin by just taking and coaxing the tip over. This is kind of a thick piece of clay, so if you move too fast, you might actually crack it open. You don't want to do that. Now, also the act of rolling and smoothing and touching has made the clay inside softer, and that also helps prevent cracking. Now let's take this end and just send it the other way. So here's just a very simple little squiggle, and I like it. Ta-da. All right, so let's move on and make these other shapes. Now they're quite simple, and I do not present myself as any kind of expert at this sort of shaping, bead shaping. This is just what I do, the way I do it. But I certainly am not an expert at making beads. I do make them, but there are some who have made sort of their career out of making gorgeous polymer beads. There are people like Shane Smith, and she's a Colorado girl who makes absolutely beautiful caned beads. Her work is very, very precise and very crisp and clear. There's a woman by the name of Carol Blackburn who wrote a whole book about polymer clay beads, and it is wonderful, and I highly recommend it. So this is what we're going to make. It kind of looks like a Michelin Man. And what I've got here is a very fine knitting needle. So I'm going to begin by making these indents in this tapering form, this pod-shaped form. And it is heavier on one end than it is on the other. This is slightly more tapered and slightly longer than this end, which is more blunt. So let's start here. And I'm just rolling and pressing the side of the needle into the clay. like so. And you can see I've made it quite deep. So let's just do one more. I'm not going to do the whole thing because I want to get to the other shaping, that flared shaping. Now, because of the way I'm doing this, I've actually created corners so the needle sits inside, but the surface is, it's sharp because it's been rolling against the work surface. And you know, that's fine. I mean, you might just want to make beads like this. It's kind of an interesting form. It doesn't have to be softened and round like this, certainly. It could be just like that. Okay, so I'm not going to do the third one. I'm just going to begin the shaping. So the goal for me when I'm making this bead that looks like a little tiny Michelin Man is to soften the corners. And you can see what was square here becomes sort of rounded and tapering, kind of bulges out a bit. So the way you're going to do that is with your fingers, or actually I did this yesterday. I'm going to take just a credit card and roll it across the clay. The edge is actually in the indent that I made with the needle, and I'm just moving that clay out a bit. And I will continue rolling and pushing the clay in wherever I see a sharp edge. Like so, right? Now I'm going to take my fingers and continue to soften and round that area. Like so. Okay, now let's do this side. Then repeat. At each indent. Okay, so I'm not going to keep doing this because I think you probably get the picture by now. But you keep working at it until this area in the center bulges out a little bit more. That's what I would try to do. And that is accomplished by just gently moving the clay with your fingers and with the side of the credit card. And you will get there. Okay. So there's basically how you make that Michelin Man bead. I'll show you the texturing after I've finished with the shaping of the other pieces. Now the next thing we're going to do is this flared piece. Now this is actually not this color. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm going to move that over because I'm going to not do that one. I'm going to do this one. I had a plan. I really had a plan. So we've got the same tapering form to start with, but I want to make this flare at one end. So I'm going to take and flatten one end of the bead against my work surface, like so. Now I'm going to take this nice stainless steel ball. It's a big ball stylus. And I'm going to push the end of the clay right into that ball. And I'm pushing the green clay onto the ball. I think that maybe you can see that. I'm holding onto the ball in my right hand, the stainless ball, and I'm pushing the green clay up around the ball. Okay, still pushing and pulling that clay. And now I'm going to make this neck by taking my fingers and pinching the clay in this area. And this is also easier because I'm actually kind of pinching and pushing up against this ball. And it makes the shaping just a little bit easier. Okay, now I'm going to remove it by kind of trying to swivel the ball. I did a good job sticking it. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to finish by thinning the dark green clay and making this flare out and flatten a bit. Which is also kind of the way I made this one. Okay, so we're at 21 minutes, so I'm going to cut this and I'm going to pick it up again in the next part. All right, this is getting a little too long. So I'll be right back.